course, your high schools were still in your various zones. And we operated under that system up until 1998. I came on board in 1985. When I came on board, it was tumultuous. I mean, there was a lot of fighting going on. People wanted to go back to court and say, hey, let's just get rid of all of this court supervision, etc. I was pretty much opposed to that because I felt we could come up with an amicable kind of solution to the problems of desegregation in the city, which I think we pretty much have. We still have some problems in some areas. But Hume-Fogg and MLK came as a result of the 1983 plan that was implemented. It actually was approved in about 1981 and all. But Hume-Fogg and MLK came into being. And the reason they did, the school board and the plaintiffs felt that locating schools in the inner city that would attract people from all around the community would help with the diversity and desegregation of schools within the inner city. And of course, one of the more important things was that they were magnet schools, and they were academic magnet schools. And of course, everybody loves academic magnet schools, bar none. And that's the silver lining that I'm talking about that came out of the dark cloud of segregation. Because Hume-Fogg and MLK have been at the premier of this city in education and well known around the country and maybe even around the world as very top-notch schools. When I was on board, and people always want to criticize metro schools and this stuff, I would always point to these schools. I said, well, you know, these schools can compare with any private school in this country. And they are comparing and doing better than most. So I want to again commend you, and that's why you're here. I just want to kind of bring the story that it came about for that reason. But it has continued over these 27 years to be a flagship school, just as MLK is. It's a flagship school for the city. It's something we're very proud of. If you're a graduate of this school, attended this school, I don't care where you go around this country, I think people will know who you are and that you came from a very, very high-achieving school in Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kendall. I'm going to take executive privilege because I'm in control of the mic. I'm going to modify the program just a minute because one of our speakers has another engagement. I promised I would get him out of here. But with regard to remarks from some of our alumni from some of the earlier classes, I'm going to call up to the stage from the class of 1988, Jerry Ellinger. His club involvement was the baseball card club as well. His favorite subject was history, and presently Jerry is a branch manager at Silverton Mortgage Specialist. And he recently received the Mortgage Banker Association of Georgia Gold Award for his outstanding work. So we'd like to hear from Jerry, so he can tell us about what Hume-Fogg was like some 29 or 30 years ago. Jerry, come on up.
Love how all that baseball card club stuff gets a laugh every time it's mentioned. I actually thought it was a pretty good club. Current and past faculty and staff, current students and alumni, as Rupert mentioned, my name is Jerry Ellinger. I'm a proud member of the 1988 Hume-Fogg academic graduating class. It was a real honor when I was asked to speak about my experiences and my memories at Hume-Fogg. It gave me the opportunity to slow down a minute out of regular life and kind of reflect on what really turned out to be some of the best years of my life. I only wish I knew that back then when they were going on, as opposed to looking back on it. In 1983, I was on a school trip to Orlando with my 8th grade class from Bellevue Middle School. We got done with whatever we were doing that day, and I did my daily check-in call home to my parents. They both answered at the same time, and I hear this big congratulations come out of the other line. I'm like, okay. And they said he got into that relatively new magnet school called Hume-Fogg. I remember thinking to myself, Hume-Fogg, that school downtown, that place where I'm going to have to ride the city bus back and forth every single day from West Nashville. I told them, listen, it's great news that I got in, but I'm going to Hillwood with all my friends. So it's pretty much that simple. My mother, always the family diplomat, said, listen, enjoy the rest of your trip. When you get home, we'll talk about it. My father, the family dictator, said, there's no discussing it, you're going, and that's it. I was devastated. I remember sitting in the room in Orlando, the hotel room, thinking to myself, I'm going home, I'm putting my foot down, and I'm going to tell them that I'm going to Hillwood. Well, the fall of 1984 came around, and I began my career here at Hume-Fogg. Right away, you could tell this was no normal school. The first thing I noticed, there were no big football players to shove all of us freshmen into lockers and to steal our lunch money. As a matter of fact, you notice there were very few people at all in the school. What there was is there was an abnormal amount of freedom. There was freedom in the way that we learned. I mean, how many schools can you tell me about that were assigned 20-page journals to write about the current book that we were reading at the time? Better yet, teachers let us write "do not read" at the top of some of the pages so that we could discuss our feelings in correlation to what we were reading with the book. We have freedom as young adults. How many schools out there allowed their students to eat lunch outside of the lunchroom, even leave school sometimes to let us to get to know each other? There were a ton of schools, or there weren't very many schools that would let you leave school to attend various events and rallies downtown, to allow us to experience history and culture when other students can only read about it or watch on TV. The faculty helped to foster an air of curiosity at Hume-Fogg. For all of you who know me out there, you know that the academic nature of Hume-Fogg was not really my strong suit, so I'm going to leave that stuff to the alumni that are going to speak after me. My Hume-Fogg experience was built on the air of curiosity that I mentioned. As students, we were encouraged to explore our curiosity. We were encouraged to ask questions. Of course, this curiosity was in regards to our education, but it filtered down to all aspects of life at Hume-Fogg. There was so much diversity in our student body, much more than I would have been exposed to going to a private school or a public school in West Nashville. The wonderful part of our diversity was the curiosity. How many high school students spent their free time discussing religion and politics and culture? How many high school students are curious enough to ask questions, to learn about each other, and finally to celebrate our differences as opposed to letting those differences divide us? I grew up in a very traditional Jewish home. Having gone to a Jewish day school, I was sure that I knew everything about my religion and about my culture. The curiosity and the questions from my schoolmates forced me to realize there was so much more to learn about myself as well as about them. These questions piqued my curiosity. I began to ask my schoolmates questions about their religions, about their cultures. These questions and answer sessions led to full-blown conversations. These conversations were not only about us, but they were about politics, our nation, and the world. We argued as conservatives and liberals. Even back then, we argued about the Middle East and the possibility of peace. We argued, but we respected each other's point of view and always walked away as friends. In today's society, it seems like any conversation where two sides cannot agree, it turns into a silly screaming match at best, or even worse, turns into complete silence where there's no conversation at all. I tell my two wonderful children, Casey, who's sitting right there, by the way, and Marley, that everyone has disagreements. I tell them that there are two sides to every story, and I tell them that you have to let other people speak in order to have all of the information when making a decision or formulating an opinion. In a country and world so divided, we have to foster the air of curiosity that was so important to me here at Hume-Fogg. We have to ask questions of one another, but more importantly, we have to be willing to pay attention to the answer. This is my biggest and most important lesson learned here at Hume-Fogg. Be open. Be open to other people, be open to other ideas, and be honest with yourself about your own opinions and feelings. couple weeks ago, I finished watching a football game. It ended late at night. My kids were asleep, my wife was asleep, and I was flipping around on the TV looking for something to watch. I saw a movie from the early 1990s called White Men Can't Jump. I'm sure all of you, at least my age, have seen that before. And the part that I turned to was where Woody Harrelson's character popped in a tape of Jimi Hendrix. And he's jamming in the front seat. And the other main character, Wesley Snipes, starts giving Harrelson a hard time. And he starts telling him, you might be able to listen to Jimmy, but you can't hear Jimmy. Harrelson can listen to the music, he can understand it, he can't feel it, and he just doesn't get it. I guess my father, the dictator, did no more than that 13-year-old know-it-all back in 1983. He sent his son kicking and screaming to Hume-Fogg as a young boy willing to listen. I left in 1988 still a boy, but able to hear. Thanks, everybody.
Talking circuit. And I will disagree about being open for all those lawyers in there. We try to exclude information, so just throw that out there. Now, moving along. So we've been hearing about the history of the school, and there was an important aspect that we thought was important to be heard, and that is the perspective from the parent. And I think similar to Jerry's experience, or just those of us who were here in the beginning, there was an interesting amount of resistance and reluctance to go into this school because we really didn't know what we were buying into. Fortunately, our parents knew better than we did. And so we're going to hear from one of our parents, John McCullough, who is the proud father of our graduate, Katie McCullough Russell, class of '87. And I'm sorry, and he's going to give us the parental perspective. He went to the Point, he has some education from Berkeley and Vanderbilt Divinity. Mr. McCullough, please.
I would like to note that Army beat Eastern Michigan 50-25 this afternoon. Those victories are few and far between for the Army team these days. I want to say the first thing before I forget, a word of deep appreciation to Mr. Ed Kendall for his many years of dedicated service on the school board. Thank you, sir. Now, I was sitting there when Ed was talking, I thought, okay, I got no problem coming after Ed. Then Jerry gets up here and I think, oh, man, it's a hard act to follow. In 1975, Katie McCullough started first grade at the Post Elementary School in Karlsheim, Germany. I was stationed there as an Army engineer. The next summer, I decided that the Army wasn't my calling, and I resigned my commission and we moved to Nashville. I got an internship out in Lebanon. But before I got all of that set up, Katie started first grade in Chattanooga, where my folks live. A few months later, moved to Lebanon and started a new school. She was able to stay in that school for second grade. Then we moved to Green Hills for third grade. Third grade, second grade. Thank you, Kate. Moved to Green Hills, where she went to Woodmont for fourth grade. I became the pastor of Woodland Presbyterian in East Nashville. We moved to Inglewood, and she went to fifth grade in Dan Mills. And Whitefield was the principal in those days of Ross Elementary in East Nashville. And as a way of kind of increasing the diversity of the school, she accepted almost every reasonable transfer. And so we transferred Katie to Ross for sixth grade because it was a couple of blocks from the church. So by the time she was in sixth grade, she'd gone to 6 different schools. Sixth grade was over. We had heard about this new magnet program that the school board had set up. We thought it was a great thing. She had applied, been accepted. It was going to start in the fall over at West End Middle, but the plaintiffs said, wait a minute, this plan needs to be tweaked a little bit. We were greatly disappointed, so Katie went to the neighborhood school, which was Lytton, for 2 years. And finally, the fall of 1983 came, and the magnet program really got underway. We, unlike Jerry's parents, were delighted to have Katie go, and she was delighted to come. I don't want to say she had a hard time in a lot of schools she went to, but as a bright, intelligent, creative, and stubbornly independent person, she didn't always fit in. But when she came here, she wasn't the only new kid. Everybody was new. And everybody was bright and creative, intelligent. And an awful lot of them were stubbornly independent. As has been noted, it was an amazing do-it-yourself program. The way it started was just, well, you've heard it described. No big plan, just let's see what we can do with all of these bright, creative, independent kids. I remember sitting here in this auditorium as we argued, we parents, about whether we would affiliate with the national PTA or have our own, independent local PTO. And I guess that stubborn independence came from parents because they decided I really was for the national affiliation, but they decided we'll have a PTO instead of a PTA. And I remember being involved with that. I remember one of the things we tried to do was involve not the immediate alumni, but the older alumni. I had parishioners at my church who had graduated from Hume-Fogg in the 30s and the 40s. And they were all very excited about the new development.